This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for November 6, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast, and not a good Thursday morning for Sixers fans. Just not a good start. They got behind early, battled back. I do like that, but losing 132-121. The Cavs were just hot from the start. Never really recovered. Like I said, they clawed back into it, got it close, and then just couldn't get over the hump. They lost, but they did show some resiliency. And the biggest issue, I think, this part of the season, now that they're playing some teams that are slightly better, they have to get off to better starts. I think that's what's killing them. Almost every game, they're getting off to slow starts. But with a young team, right now, a lot of question marks trying to get Joe back into it. He didn't play last night due to the knee load management. Trying to figure out the rotations and everything. This is to be expected. And they're still fun. It was still a fun game. And we just have fun basketball. And again, this is why it's kind of like tone back the expectations somewhat with this team. I do think once they get into a rhythm and into a flow, they'll be better, but 2 straight now for the Sixers, who lost on back-to-back nights. They are off now until the weekend, where they'll play back-to-back games down at the X. But a tough one. And to kind of put things into perspective, I saw a stat, thanks to Crossing Broad, yesterday about the Tuesday night game. Sixers are the first team in NBA history to score 45 or more points in the first quarter, 75 or more points in the first half, score under 40 in the second half, and lose. So at least they're making history, but not the kind of history you want. But they'll be okay. They'll be okay. Enjoy. And we used to say it all the time. Trust the process. Just enjoy it and go. But a tough night for the Sixers. My Owls did beat Delaware State to open the season. Got some news early in the day that one of their big recruits they got from, I believe, Alabama State has been ruled ineligible for something that happened before he got to Temple. No other real details. It happened really close to game time. So I'll continue to monitor that. But 83-65 over Delaware State. Some Major League Baseball free agency news as free agency kicks off today. Phillies did choose to exercise their option on Jose Alvarado, so he will be back. And I like this. I think that was pretty much an expected pick or an expected option that they were going to pick up. And I like it. I mean, they're going to need him. Maybe he comes out with something to prove. But it is a bullpen piece that they certainly could have used in the postseason. But free agency kicks off today. We'll see what happens. I don't expect anything huge, at least for a couple weeks. You usually don't see that. Maybe a trade. We'll get into some trades later, either today or tomorrow, that occurred around this time. But for the most part, don't expect anything big and splashy today. And then, of course, the Eagles are back in practice. John Clark was correct when I heard that yesterday. They returned to practice today to get you ready for Monday Night Football. The new Brotherly Birds breakdown is out. We recap a very busy trade deadline for the Eagles, talk a little Howie Roseman, talk a little Philly Sports Hall of Fame. More on that here in a second. But one of the topics, and I literally just saw something this morning on this as I was scrolling through Twitter, as I was doing my final prep here. And it's an interesting one because we did talk about this yesterday, but it was from a Lions podcast, I guess. I'm not sure exactly who all was on the thing. I just kind of read the description. I didn't listen to it. But the gist of what they were saying was everybody's celebrating Howie Roseman for going out and making these moves, bringing in Jalen Phillips, bringing in Jair Alexander, bringing in Michael Carter, and of course, bringing back Brandon Graham. But the gist was everybody's celebrating him, but he wouldn't have had to make those moves if he had done it right the first time. And now I'm going to have to disagree on that. Now, and again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds with this because we did discuss it on the Brotherly Birds breakdown. But the fact of the matter is, not a lot of GMs would do what Howie's doing. Essentially, he's admitting that he made a mistake. He's essentially admitting that he didn't do enough to make sure that the pass rush and cornerback 2 were addressed. And the guys he felt were able to step up haven't done so. So instead of just going through the season with a glaring need and an obvious mistake, he's like, all right, I will go out and I'll fix this mistake. So I think obviously different perspectives and everything, but I don't think anybody in Philly is going to say, oh man, Howie just made the team that much better. I do think they're significantly better than what they were the last time they played. However, part of that is due to the fact that you made some mistakes. And I appreciate that because a lot of GMs will just double down and continue rolling out. Howie sees it, addresses it. It still remains to be seen how it's going to play out. But that's a huge, that's an important skill to have, is to be able to admit that you made a mistake and then go out and correct it. So again, we'll see what happens, but I just thought that was funny coming from a Lions fan who, I don't know did they do anything? We'll see them in 2 weeks. But Kyle and I do get you ready for the Eagles-Packers. Brotherly Birds breakdown available now wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Flyers in action tonight down in Nashville. And hopefully they're looking to keep their momentum rolling. It's going to be an up and down season for the winter teams. So just buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, yesterday's trivia question, we were talking about T.O. being suspended. And I asked, how many touchdowns did he catch in his season and a half with the Eagles? Everybody knows he caught 14 in 2004. But by the time he got suspended, he had 6 touchdowns. So 20 total with the Eagles. And I've often forgotten in all of the mess that happened between the sit-ups, the fight with Hugh Douglas, the calling out Donovan, so to speak. He was having probably a better season in 2005 than he was in 2004. So thank you to everybody who came on the Discord channel. Hit me up in all my social media and everything at Philly Jimbo. And the Discord is the first link in the description. But thanks to everybody who did reach out and guess on that. A lot of people were, much like me, were surprised that T.O. had 20 touchdowns in his season and a half. I mentioned my social media. Follow me there. Leave a comment. Let's have some discourse. I always try to respond to everybody's comments. Lots of things this week on TikTok regarding Randall Cunningham, so it's fun to go down and relive those highlights from Randall. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. You'll be notified immediately once this podcast is posted, as well as the Brotherly Birds breakdown. I mentioned the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. That induction ceremony is tonight. Looking forward to that. Lots of great athletes getting in. Jeffrey Lurie's winning the Philadelphia medal. Clyde Simmons. The Eagles are winning this Pride of Philadelphia. More on that later in the show. But it's going to be a good time. And after all of the dust settles from this induction ceremony, I'm going to be kind of working with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, specifically on their YouTube channel. Always looking to improve things. So as more details and I kind of sort through that and see how we can coordinate and get everything together, I'll keep you posted on that. But I'm very excited to be working with them with their YouTube channel. I think it's a win-win for everybody. And then, of course, I've been teasing this. It's coming November 17th. The 3rd annual gift and food drive is happening, partnering with the Matty Ann Dixon Community Cupboard over in Ambler, working on setting up a new way for you guys to donate, an easier way, a cheaper way, so we can give most of the profits and most of the donations back. The site I found is, like I said, better for these types of fundraisers. So looking forward to working with that and making this the best ever. And of course, the reverse advent calendar, which is always a good time to get kids involved and teach them the value of giving back, especially with this political climate and no budget and SNAP benefits and all that going on. So stay tuned for that, November 17th. Want to show off your Philly pride without saying a word? Philly Goat has you covered. From tees, hoodies, shoes, and hats, their gear screams Philly louder than an Eagles fan at the vet. Whether you're tailgating in South Philly or trying to flex down the Jersey Shore, do it in style. Hit up phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery, and get 10% off your order. Philly Goat, because being Philly ain't a choice, it's a way of life. Go Birds! All right, November 6th. Kind of a mixed bag big day for Philly sports history. First, we're going to go all the way back to 1966. And on this day in 1966, the Eagles beat the Cowboys 24-3 at Franklin Field. They did so without scoring an offensive touchdown. Tim Brown had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Aaron Mart had a punt return for a touchdown. As the Eagles only managed 80 yards of total offense, 3 costly turnovers, but the defense did just enough to keep the Cowboys at bay, forcing 2 turnovers and 3 sacks. The Eagles that year would finish 9-5, second place in the Eastern Division to the Cowboys, would go on to play the Colts in the Playoff Bowl, which was essentially a third-place game. Playoffs? And that does lead us right into Throwback Thursday, brought to you by Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com for your 3D custom hype chains. Things are great for youth sports. Fantasy football playoffs are going to be kicking up here in a few weeks. So go. It's a great way to honor your champion, honor your last place finisher, whatever you want to do. And be sure to use that promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off your order. That's lotwin.com, 3D custom hype chains. Things are awesome. So let's take a look at the Playoff Bowl. And this is sort of more of an NFL history than a Philly sports history, but there is a Philly tie here. But as I mentioned, the Playoff Bowl was essentially a third-place game where the way it was set up before the merger, the Eastern Division champion took on the Western Division champion for the NFL championship. The second-place winners in each division then would play a third-place game down at the Orange Bowl in Miami. It was originally called the Runner-Up Bowl, later changed to the Burt Bell Benefit Bowl. And it really was a fundraiser to fund the NFL players' pension plan. So whatever ticket sales, I guess concessions and things like that, they would donate to the pension plan and help out these guys once they left. But ultimately, the Playoff Bowl ended with the AFL-NFL merger. And essentially, they were just like, there's no need for a loser bowl. They talked about playing it in between the end of the regular season and the Super Bowl, kind of like the Pro Bowl almost. And there was no steam, no momentum for that. Vince Lombardi actually called it the Shit Bowl. So this is the precursor for the toilet bowls that a lot of people have in fantasy football. Now, where does the Philly tie come in? The Eagles have played in 2 playoff bowls. They are 0-2 all time. We just mentioned they played in 1966. They played in 1961 where they lost to the Lions, who happened to be and have the dubious honor, I guess, or distinction, whatever you want to call it, of being 3-0 in playoff bowls. But it was broadcast on CBS. Today, those games, originally, they did count for the team's all-time playoff records. Today, the NFL considers them expectations, and so they don't count. But the Playoff Bowl was played from 1960 to 1969. Eagles playing in 2 of them, finishing 0-2. Could you imagine something like that today? Getting the players who lost the NFC and AFC championship games to play each other in a game for third place? I don't think it would fly. Not at all. But that is Throwback Thursday, brought to you by Lotwin. The Playoff Bowl, the Eagles going 0-2, playing in 1961 and 1966. Is an interesting concept. At the time, I guess it made sense, especially since it funded the pension plan. I think there would be a market for it today. I think much like college bowl games, though, now you'd run into the issue of players opting out and things like that, because essentially, who cares who came in third place? And a lot of times it's who cares who came in second place. But the playoff bowl is today's Throwback Thursday. All right, now we're going to go all the way back 20 years later, or earlier, 20 years later to 1986. Flyers and Devils skated to a 5-5 tie up in Jersey. Murray Creven scored 2 goals for the Flyers, including a shorthander. His teammate, Mark House, scored another shorthanded goal 32 seconds later in the first period. It was the fastest pair of shorthanded goals in Flyers team history, as the Flyers and Devils skated to a 5-5 tie. But it's rare to see one shorthanded goal, let alone 2, within about 30 seconds. 1 year later, the Sixers opened the season with a 108-95 win over the Pacers down at the Spectrum. Charles Barkley, 29 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, added 2 blocks. But making his debut for the Pacers that day and scoring 10 points in 26 minutes was Reggie Miller. So Reggie Miller made his NBA debut against the Sixers on this day in 1987. For his career, he averaged 17.5 points a game versus the Sixers. Wouldn't necessarily rank as a Sixers killer, but still a pretty good career against them for Reggie. And that does lead to today's trivia question. All time, who has the highest points per game versus the Sixers, minimal of playing 5 games? So hit me up on the Discord, any of my social media, but who has the highest career points per game against the Sixers all time? The answer may surprise you. All right, and then 1 year later from there, 1988, Eagles beat the Rams 30-24 at the Vet. I remember this game well, and I'm not sure why. But Randall had himself yet another game. It's been Randall Cunningham week here on the pod. 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a 37-yarder to Keith Byers on 4th and 1. Keith Jackson caught the other 2. The defense was outstanding, forced 5 turnovers, 4 of them interceptions of Jim Everett, including William Frizzell's interception with 24 seconds left to seal it. They also sacked Jim Everett 3 times. As the Eagles moved to 5-5, they would go 5-1 down the stretch to win the NFC East and then head out to Chicago for the Fog Bowl. But on this day, they beat the Rams 30-24. I remember this game well, and every time I hear Jim Everett's name, remember the whole Jim Rome show that was on ESPN2, and Jim Everett went and tried to fight Jim Rome because he kept calling him Chris Everett? If you're old enough like me, you remember that well. Jim Everett essentially was like, I guarantee you won't call me Chris again. Jim Rome, of course, said, sure I will, Chris. And then all hell broke loose. I don't know why. Certain things like that just stick in my mind. All right, then in 1994, Fred Barnett scored 2 receiving touchdowns. The defense recorded 5 sacks, including 2 by Andy Harmon, forced 2 turnovers as the Eagles beat the Cardinals 17-7 down at the Vet. They improved to 7-2. Everybody was feeling pretty good about this team. Unfortunately, that was the last win of the season, as they would go 0-7 down the stretch to finish 7-9, marking the end of the Rich Kotite experience in Philadelphia. Jeffrey Lurie came in and was like, no, I'm done. We'll hire Ray Rhodes and deal with him later. And then finally in 2005, in their first game post-TO, the Eagles lose to Washington 17-10. Donovan was pretty good, though. 304 yards and a touchdown to Reggie Brown. Unfortunately for Donovan, his season would only last 1 more game because he would suffer a groin injury the next week against the Cowboys. No TO, putting the final nail into that miserable, yet sometimes fun, 2005 season. And then finally today, our final 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee spotlight is your 2024 Super Bowl 59 champion Philadelphia Eagles. They are winning the Pride of Philadelphia award, and this award is given out to deserving teams or individuals who exemplify the spirit and pride of Philadelphia sports. Not necessarily a team of the year or player of the year, although in this case, you could certainly make the argument that the Eagles were the team of the year in all sports. I would go as far as saying that. But the Pride of Philadelphia recognizes their accomplishments for making Philly fans proud, essentially. They represented Philadelphia and the surrounding area with dignity, determination, and class through their athletic achievement. And personally, they took belt to ass to the Chiefs. So it's going to be fun to celebrate the Super Bowl champions tonight. Jeffrey Lurie, big Eagles night tonight. Jeffrey Lurie's getting the Pride of Philadelphia. Clyde Simmons is going in. So looking forward to it. But the Pride of Philadelphia award this year goes to your Super Bowl 59 champion, Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm looking forward to it. Lots of fun. Should be a good event tonight. I'll recap it tomorrow. This is my third year going. Tons of fun. Enjoy my time working with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, and hopefully taking that relationship to the next level this year, especially working with their YouTube channel. On this day in 2005, Eagles lose their first game post-TO 17-10 to Washington. Donovan McNabb with a touchdown pass to Reggie Brown. Fred Barnett scored 2 touchdowns on this day in 1994 as the Eagles win their final game of the 1994 season before going on that epic collapse, which was the worst collapse in team history until 2023. Then in 1988, Eagles beat the Rams, another great game by Randall Cunningham. In 1987, Sixers opened the season with a win over the Pacers. Reggie Miller making his NBA debut. Don't forget about the trivia question. Who has the highest career points per game average against the Sixers? 86, Flyers and Devils skate to a 5-5 tie, but Murray Creven and Mark Howe score shorthanded goals within 32 seconds of each other, setting the Flyers record for shortest period of time between two shorthanded goals. And then in 1966, Eagles beat the Cowboys without scoring a offensive touchdown, 2 kickoff returns and a punt return as they beat the Cowboys 24-23. Tomorrow is Friday. It's a feel-good Friday. We'll get you ready for Eagles-Packers. AI will make his appearance as we spend Fridays with AI. I'll recap the Hall of Fame ceremony, update you on the Flyers who are out in Nashville today, and then, of course, any news and notes from Phillies free agency. I'm not expecting a ton just yet. Get you ready for the weekend in Philly sports, but it's a feel-good Friday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for November 6, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.